What is going on? It's Alex coming back at you with another video, and today we're going to be reviewing the Draft Network's 2025 NFL mock draft, and we have a bonus special interview from my number 7 player in the class, Marcus Mbow, at the end of this. So if you want to see that, stay tuned to the end. It's going to be great. Obviously, want to give him as much of a shout out as possible, so connecting it to this so you guys get to have a 2-for-1. So kind of a double drop 2 days in a row. So feel free to go check out my mock draft that I posted yesterday. It's 2 rounds, so enjoy that as well. Let's get right into this. Let's have a good time. If you haven't already joined the community, do so. And below my face is my board. It continues to change. That's kind of the fun part of it. I show you guys exactly what I'm thinking at every single moment, so I don't really have to always tell you what I'm thinking. Transparency is key. Use that link tree. You see all the links scrolling below my face as well. The link tree gets you to all of those, and I'm going to be posting. I post all the time on Twitter, but also take advantage of those underdog deals because they're just dropping 20% profit boost stuff. Like, it's kind of crazy. So use that top link in the link tree, and you get to send me $60 while doing it. But as you guys on Twitter know, I've been using it a lot myself. Do it responsibly though, and legally. Continuing on though, starting off with the draft. The Patriots draft Will Campbell at number 1 overall. Reverse the Super Bowl betting odds. You know what? I like Will Campbell to the Patriots. I take him at number 2. And if there's going to be no trades in this, not going to shame it. It just depends if the arm length is going to be big enough to be at offensive tackle full time. Because versus Dallas Turner, definitely had his, he definitely lost his reps. We'll put it that way. He won some as well. Let's not act like it was a complete shit show. But there was a whole half where he was definitely in the passenger seat, and he was not driving that equation, that little ship, so to speak. At number 2, the Panthers go T-Mac, Tetairoa McMillan. I like T-Mac on a lot of teams. I think overall, he's not really great for every team. You really need to get if you don't need a possession guy, this is not going to be it. And Panthers can't go wrong with going T-Mac, but it's just at number 2 overall, man. Like, Jesus, there's got to be bigger reasons than wide receiver. There really has to be. So I just don't really see the value in that necessarily. It's why some people who want Travis Hunter number 1 overall, number 2 overall, like, it is tough for me to see the value in those positions because wins above replacement, especially in comparison to the vast amount of guys who are out there, it's tough. It's tough to say that like you can't get similar value for essentially free on the market. Not exactly, because Tetairoa McMillan could be a top 15 receiver in the NFL, which is priced around that 25 million mark, 26 million. So at the same time, you can get really, really good talent. I doubt that, Leggett, Thielen, Mingo would be a necessarily poor trio to where you'd really be compelled to go after T-Mac over offensive line, over edge rusher, over corner as well. At number 3, we got the Denver Broncos going Calvin Banks. It makes a ton of sense. Left tackle Garrett Bowles up for a contract this year. He wanted out pretty much last year anyway. He was complaining in interviews saying, I'm tired of losing. I want to win. And so he's probably gone. Calvin Banks, I'm not super duper high on him, but this week's going to be super duper key versus Michigan to see if I'm really ready to give him that top 5 status where he should be picked in the top 5. He's never going to get top 5 on my board because I just love certain players. But, if he ends up doing that, that's awesome. I always say that. I like to have my board to reflect the player that they are at the moment and then adjust it to show, and see that progress over the entire year. But at number 4, the New York Giants go Carson Beck, quarterback out of Georgia. He's done better this year than he did last year. I like seeing progression. I still see a pretty capped ceiling. Doesn't have an elite arm. He has moments where the processing is not 100% there. But, he does keep an offense in rhythm. And especially when he is in rhythm, I do appreciate that. He throws with anticipation. I do worry that on those throws on the outside of the hashes, the ball velocity might be a lot more difficult to make those plays consistently with NFL corners being even more twitched up. So that's the reason why a plus arm is like something that you can be a lot more excited about. Like, it's not just because, he can throw it farther. Like, no, on those throws where it's a tight window, the window theoretically gets larger if you have more time to get there before the defenders reacted. So that's the only reason. But Carson Beck fits the Giants. Good mobility. He's a better version of Daniel Jones, especially. So I would say that that's a pretty solid move. I ended up taking a different quarterback for the Giants in my most recent mock draft, and I've been seeing some pretty positive feedback for that. So I do like that a lot. Then we got the Tennessee Titans going Abdul Carter. He did not do jack this past week, and yes, I mean theoretically this was produced 6 days ago, September 1st. This was after he ended up playing pretty abysmally. He was the worst graded defender on Penn State. I think it was 44. He could not play the run whatsoever, and he had one pressure. I know there's going to be some time where he needs to tool up, so the pressure is the least of my worries. It's the fact that he could not play a well-rounded game at all, and then even though he couldn't play a well-rounded game, he still didn't succeed as a pass rusher. So I can see the Titans being interested in Abdul, but probably in round 3-ish, round 2-ish. Like it's tough at the moment to justify Abdul, especially in the top 5. Maybe you want to talk about late first. I could see the progression getting there, but it's going to be a big, big climb to get into this conversation. Commanders going Luther Burden. After getting rid of Jahan Dotson, it makes a lot of sense. I just personally don't see as much value in Luther Burden because of the vast amount of receivers in this class that have, in my opinion, similar talent levels who could play a similar position for far lower cost, i.e. Deion Burks, now in Oklahoma. I think that dude's fantastic. You'll probably get him in the 3rd round. Like, you're talking about from the 6th pick to the 3rd round. You look at that drop in pick value for probably a 10% drop in terms of actual usable talent for what the Commanders are looking for. I see that, and I'm like, that's worth it to me. But at the same time, I understand the sentiment here. I just think that offensive line and edge rusher, like, those are 2 key positions or 2 key areas that you really, really need to fix up before you start getting cute by getting more weapons. Because I don't think weapons are going to be what holds this team back. I think the fact that the offensive line is Garbo, and, I mean, you did a great job with Cosme, thank God. I mean, if you guys lost him, all hope would be lost. But edge rusher-wise as well, like, you're just really weak compared to other teams in those aspects. Saints then go Travis Hunter. They need a receiver. So, you know what? I think Travis Hunter is not a corner. He's not going to be. I think he's a better corner than he is a receiver. But at the same time, money speaks, man. I mean, corner 4 makes wide receiver 23 money. At the end of the day, it's a smarter business decision to be a wide receiver, and the Saints need it. They really do. So, I just think that this is very feasible. And it's up the Saints' alley, man. He's a great playmaker, great contested catch ability, above 60% if I'm not mistaken. So, if you're going to be going offensive weapon, not a bad idea. At 8, the Vegas Raiders go Shedeur Sanders, quarterback out of Colorado. Shedeur is that floor quarterback, and I think that if you're at 8, you don't want exactly the pure floor quarterback. And I'm not saying Shedeur is ass. Like, again, talent-wise, I have nothing wrong with this. I have nothing wrong with this dude. I have the same criticisms as Beck for the most part, because with Beck, both of them, he and Shedeur, do not have the level of arm that guys like Drew Aller do. And I'm not saying Drew Aller should be the pick for the Raiders. I took Carson Beck. But I do want, for me, I want somebody who has at least maybe plus athleticism or a plus arm with a really good processor, right? I want one of those two and the processor part. Luckily for Shedeur, I think he will be successful. I don't think this would be a horrible pick. Like, let me clarify that. I don't think Shedeur is worth a top 10 pick yet. And people might say that's ridiculous, but he played an FCS team. He was 4-9 last year. There's a lot of other factors there. I totally agree. But the fact is, he was my QB 5 or 6 coming into the year. And so I still have respect for him for what he does. It's just when you don't have that playmaking aspect, that he looked better this year. So we'll see if it translates and continues getting better. I'm very excited for it to do so. But at the moment, versus higher end competition, does not have that level of playmaking that other QBs have, does not have the athleticism other QBs have, doesn't have the arm other QBs have. So you're really relying on the processor, which, thank God, it is the best in the class. Throws the anticipation as well. Like, we'll see how it performs versus higher level competition. But you're really going to need to see that plus aspect that gets you over Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell. And I'm not there yet. I could be. I think there's other quarterbacks that I would take Cam Ward in a heartbeat here. But for me, I think there's just a lot that you have to get right for a Shedeur to succeed in the NFL. And that's because of the fact that, not every good quarterback has a plus arm, but a lot of them do develop their arm over time. even Drew Brees for a while until he got old. He could sling it. And then Tom Brady got a better arm. Friggin' Baker Mayfield got a better arm. I remember that was the big criticism of him coming into the league. So, there's definitely a path for success for Shedeur. It's just, is he going to be a top 15 quarterback in the NFL? If your answer is yes, then it makes more sense. That's my thing. Minnesota Vikings going Mason Graham at 9. He had an abysmal performance versus Fresno State. Just bottom line, you can't get a single pressure that game. I know pressures aren't everything, but when you are known for your block shedding and pretty much your pass rushing upside, he was not known as an elite run defender. That's a bad sign. So I'm really hoping this is a huge week for him versus that Texas interior offensive line that is a very, very good group. You got DJ Campbell in there, who I think is extremely underrated, but you also have just a multitude of really talented offensive linemen for him, as well as Kenneth Grant. This is a huge week to prove that they can bounce back and actually perform versus higher end talent. And maybe week 1 was just an off week. But if their performance from week 1 continues, do not be surprised to see them dropping down boards. So, but at the moment, I have hope for Mason Graham, and the Vikings could certainly use it. At pick 10, the Cardinals go James Pierce. With the injuries that have gone on, with the lack of actual talent at the edge rushing position, I love Xavier Thomas. I love B.J. Ojolari. Both, y'all know if you've been following me, those are 2 of my guys. BJO was my number 8 player in the class that year. Sucks to see him get hurt. And then Xavier Thomas, I think, was a top 50 guy for me. It's obviously a pretty big discrepancy from where he was taken. So I have hope for it, but at the same time, it's you got to have more than that. And James Pierce actually brings a really solid run defense foundation that I don't think he gets enough credit for. I think he'd be a good fit for the Cardinals. I really do. At number 11, the Buccaneers go Will Johnson. I think it's ridiculous that he's here, but you guys see my board. It's pretty obvious where I thought he should go. If the Buccaneers get that, pop the champagne bottles, man. At number 12, the Colts going Malachi Starks. I'm not a huge fan of taking safety super high, but this is the one guy who I feel comfortable with. He's a really talented safety. And, the fact is he can play slot corner as well in case Kenny Moore gets injured. That's a huge part of this defense. I think that this would be a massive win for the Colts. Then you got Emory Jones for the Seahawks at 13. We'll see what happens, but I totally agree. Addressing right tackle is legitimately something that you should look at. For me, Marcus Mbow out of Purdue is the right tackle to go after. And if you guys are wondering, if you want to know more about him, we have that interview at the end if you guys missed the beginning. So you guys can check out that. It's going to be super fun. But Emory Jones is still a feisty player. I think he'd be a really good Seattle Seahawk. My thing would be I worry about him long-term as a tackle. I really would prefer for him to be on a team where guard is a legitimate route for the future. And with Bradford and with Christian Haynes in there, and then you also have Olu Oluwatimi, there's not many spots in the interior offensive line where I think I would be excited for Emory Jones to, replace for the future. So fingers crossed he can end up being a tackle, but I would prefer to go after someone who genuinely believes that they're a pure tackle and doesn't have any real questions. And then you'll hear in the interview, I talked to Marcus about it. Do you think that you should be a guard? Do you think you're open to it? And he said he's open to it, but bottom line, he wants to be a tackle. But you can see his answer in the interview later. Steelers going Ben Morrison. I'd be so happy. I'd be freaking ecstatic, dude. Straight up. Seeing Ben Morrison and Joey Porter Jr. on the same team, I'd lose my marbles. I really would. This would make me so happy. For the love of God, Steelers, make this happen. At number 15, the Jaguars go Ariante Urzuri. My only thing with Ariante is he is so nuanced as a pass blocker. It's just he's very, very raw. I don't know if he could hold up at the NFL level day one as a pass protector. He's a monster run blocker. I think he's unbelievable, and he's super athletic. I think he should play guard for the short run. I want him to be on a team similar to Emory Jones where he can kick into guard if he needs to. But I don't dislike the idea of going after offensive line here at all. I think it's a massive need. And Ariante Urzuri, if he continues to improve his pass blocking, absolutely should be in contention here because the run blocking is almost unparalleled in this class. I think it's fantastic. Pick 16, you got the Chargers going Mikael Williams, edge out of Georgia. Going after edge rusher for the Chargers, not a bad idea. High value position. You got two veterans who are kind of, gotta admit, they are not at the peak of their career. Joey's had his injury issues in the past. Khalil's just a guy who, he might even be a trade deadline target just because of the fact that, if the Chargers aren't doing so well, which I don't think they will be. There's teams like, theoretically, if the Eagles want some extra pass rush, that fits exactly what Fangio's looking for. Someone who can cover, it has that veteranship as well. Like, I'm not saying that's what you should do, but there's just a theoretical idea that you could end up moving on from him. And I don't think he's there for the long haul. And even if he is, how long's the long haul? I think Mikael Williams is an excellent addition. Then we have at 17, Cleveland Browns going Emeka Egbuka. I mean, we'll see. They want to get rid of Amari Cooper. So if you're going to be losing Cooper and Elijah Moore this offseason, especially showing the lack of loyalty that they had to their position, the wide receiver very well might be the market that they go after. But the Browns certainly could be, and I think that's a smart thing to do. A running back or wide receiver, getting a skilled position on offense, probably going to be the way they rock. Bears then go Walter Nolan at 18. That's pretty ballsy. I don't think Walter Nolan's that good at the moment, but Walter Nolan still has a ton of untapped potential. I think he is a second round type of guy. And the Bears do need some defensive interior help. It sucks to say it, but having that extra rotation would be a massive win for the team. I do think this is just a bit early. Rams going Colson Loveland doesn't make very much sense. My former high school teammate, Colby Parkinson, got just paid a big bag. I know that they tried to get Brock Bowers after the fact, but at the same time, I love Colson Loveland with all my heart. He is not Brock Bowers. He's a different style of player than Brock Bowers as well. Brock is just, like, Colson Loveland's like a wide receiver. He can still block very well, but Brock Bowers was just, he was built different. He was a generational level player, in my opinion, for the tight end position. I think he's going to be an absolute baller there for the Raiders. So I don't think that, I understand the logic here. Hey, if you're trying to trade up for a top tier tight end, you get one falling to you at 19. It makes sense in that regard. But I just don't see the value of Colston Loveland comparatively as Bowers. And yes, I appreciate the fact that they actually said that right there, that he's not quite Bowers level right now. But yes, he is clearly the tight end one at the moment. I'm going to be dropping Mitchell Evans. I just had a lot of hope for the guy because it's 265, blocks well. And, I thought he moved pretty well for his size. We'll see what happens there. But Colson Loveland to the Rams, it's not a bad pick because of the fact, again, it does make sense. Hey, we wanted to upgrade the tight end position, and you don't have to even trade up for it this time. But I think there's other positions I'd probably try to target for the Rams over that, but I still think it's not a bad pick. Dolphins going Tyreek Williams makes a ton of sense. Defensive interior, because they're not going to draft offensive guard in the first. Much as we want them to draft offensive line early, they're not going to do it. Tyreek Williams is a fantastic defensive interior. I think he deserves to be a first-round pick. I'm happy for him. Falcons going Nick Skelton. At this point, makes a ton of sense. He's the number 4 player in the class for me. And again, there's obviously all of this is subject to change. I'm waiting for more and more tape to be able to reevaluate these guys. And, to be fair, watching Texas A&M versus Notre Dame, got to understand what their tackles are, but I still think it's a very translatable game. He will be getting reevaluated this week. But the Atlanta Falcons going after him, you got to go after edge rusher. I think Braylon Trice is an absolute bust at this point, and that sucks because he was he my edge one? No, Dallas Turner's always been my edge one. He was my edge 2 forever. And then losing 30 pounds and then not athletic, it sucks. It really sucks. I would just give up on that project. Not saying like give up on him, but say if you have Nick Skelton land in your lap, don't pass over for Braylon Trice. That's the much more appropriate way to say exactly what I'm feeling. It's just, you got to do what you got to do. And Nick Skelton brings that size profile that Braylon Trice was supposed to bring. And I think he could slim down a little bit. Like, not to 245, but I think that it would be best for him to be around like that 265, 270 range, not 280. But I digress. At 21, it's a great value. Jets going Quinn Ewers. I do think you could end up trying to target a QB this class, but why do it here? There's so many talents in this class. Like, you could get Milrow probably round 3, but even if you can't, there's going to be really good talents there. The Nuss bus, like, you're not going to see all these quarterbacks go off the board in the first 2 rounds. I just doubt it. There's not enough teams with that massive of a need. This past draft, we saw a lot of teams with big needs go after their QBs. So I think it's just a little bit premature for that. Denzel Burke going to the Packers. It's a team that just does not need much. The defensive coordinator likes press man. Denzel Burke has gotten better and better every year at that. And defensive back is always a super valuable position. Maxwell Harrison to the Bills. I wouldn't really want a 180-pound corner in Buffalo for the most part. I know that they've had them in the past, but just for me, I want a corner with a little bit more size, a little bit more physicality. And Maxwell Hairston brings a lot to the table. He's a very athletic player. I do like what he offers, but yeah, for me, it's just I'm not there yet. I'm not there yet with him. He's still like a top 15 corner for me. It's just I pump the brakes a little bit for a first round corner. Dallas Cowboys going Ollie Gordon. I think Ashton Genty has like solidified himself as the number 1 running back. But there's still Ollie Gordon's still a fantastic running back, and he'd be a home run hitter for the Cowboys. I just think you should go after someone who has a little bit more power to their game and contact balance over someone who's going to be a little bit more of a home run hitter. At 26, the Bengals go JT Tuimoloau. Way too early for JT. I love JT. I don't know why there's now just a random resurgence of love for JT Tuimoloau, like just out of nowhere. It just came back. And I hate to be the guy who's like pipe down because people just yo-yo with their, like, it's very bipolar, the thought process on JT. But the Bengals do have some issues with their edge rushing core in terms of efficiency. I think that they certainly will be looking at an upgrade there. But in the first round, I don't know. I don't think JT Tuimoloau was any better than Myles Murphy. So I don't really think that would be very wise to go after him at that spot. Texans then going Dallin Walker. Defense interior is key, man, and super high ceiling, so worth it. 28, Eagles going Harold Perkins. He is a Fangio type of linebacker at this point, dude. He can cover well. He can blitz. He's a great edge rusher. He's going to be pretty much Hassan Reddick, Andrew Van Ginkel style. And I do think that is going to be a massive asset. If he's there at 28, they'll draft him saying it's an edge just to cover up the fact that they don't draft the linebackers in the first. But Harold Perkins is the pick if he's there at 28. Then the Lions go Patrick Payton. Do not know how you could end up selecting him in the first round at this point based on his play. But I'm really hoping he ends up having that reascension. Maybe he just was not mentally there for the first couple games and he ends up getting back on track because this is a guy who I was really hoping to be a big riser, but so far has not been so. Then we got the Ravens going Jonas Savania. My only issue with this is that you're pretty much guaranteeing him to be a guard. You're not kicking this guy to left tackle. He's already pretty damn raw as a right tackle. You're not going to be kicking him to left because you can't use him at right. You just drafted one in the second round in Roger Rosengarten. You'd have to be kicking him to guard right away, and there's a lot better guards that are available, in my opinion. At 31, the Niners go with Sebastian Castro. He's not a boundary cornerback, so if you guys are really looking for an explosive slot guy, not really fast, explosive slot guy, he's very limited athletically in that regard, but I mean, he's an absolute stud. He's my 17th best player in the class, and that's after I've added dudes above him. Then we got the Chiefs going Kenneth Grant at 32. I think that's an unreal move in terms of value. It's great. I'm praying that Kenneth Grant gets back on track. But if you get someone who's 340 pounds, an elite athlete, and has that pass rushing upside with a great motor, to me, that means everything. And you put him with Chris Jones, like that's super duper key. I think teams need to really, and maybe they are doing this, but I'm just saying, like, for maybe us mock drafters out there, we need to start looking at the veterans on the team and saying who actually has the most to gain. Like if you draft a position, how are you going to leverage your experienced talent the most? Like for the Niners, it's like, hey, that's where you get Marcus Mbow because you get to train him with Trent Williams. Like Kenneth Grant, you get to pair him up with Chris Jones. Like where I think we need to start leveraging that a little bit more. And you could say Jonas Savania with Ronnie Stanley. I get that. But it's also a right tackle. You're moving to left. It's like, it's a big stretch. So those are my thought processes there. Let me know what you think and enjoy the interview. We'll see you there. All right, we are in with one of my favorite players in the draft, my number 1 tackle. It is Marcus. How do you say your last name? I need to know this right.
It's Mbow.
It's Mbow?
Yeah.
That's even sicker. Okay. Marcus Mbow. So, obviously, one of my guys early on. Appreciate you for coming on the show. But we're going to have a good time here. Feel free to introduce yourself.
My name's Marcus Mbow, redshirt junior tackle at Purdue. Looking to do some big things this upcoming season.
Awesome, dude. Well, yeah, you're the right tackle. So, I'm curious because one of my buddies ended up being a huge fan of you potentially as a guard. I think that you're going to be a tackle. Which position do you think is going to be more native to you? Like, because at 6'5", 305, you could theoretically go either way. Which one would you feel more comfortable with?
I don't really mind, to be honest. At the end of the day, it's whatever my coach wants. I probably feel more expressive, more comfortable at tackle in terms of, being able to express my athleticism and whatnot.
Right.
But I feel like guard is a little bit easier.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Well, that's awesome. So something I noted about you that I was a really big fan of was your ability to, like, with your hand technique, it was so calculated. It felt like you either already play defense or have a background in hand-to-hand combat. Or either two.
I've just been working on my hands a lot since I started playing. I know that's a big part of the game is hands extension and
right.
Strike. I don't have any hand-to-hand combat, background.
Yeah.
Just basketball for me growing up.
Basketball.
Yeah. I mean, I'm all types of sports, so I feel like that's where my athleticism comes from. And I feel like my hands is just a lot of focus and just a lot of technique practicing.
Okay. Well, I mean, obviously it comes through. You have, like, there's a lot of clips of you throwing dudes last week with one arm. Would you say, because I love your technique above everything, are you more prideful of your technique or your power?
I'd probably say my technique.
Okay.
I feel like, even though sometimes I feel like I can lose my technique trying to try new things or whatnot. But,
sure.
I feel like that's probably my better attribute, just my feet and my technique,
Yeah. Oh, that's great. So I am curious. This is something that I've seen quite a bit with a lot of other prospects. When especially engaged, a lot of them lose leverage by leaning too far forward. Do you ever go through that mental checklist in your head of making sure that you maintain proper balance on your feet? Or is it just something that is innate to you that might not be for other players?
I feel like at this point in my career, just playing so much football and doing so many practice reps and playing against older guys and that are good football players, I feel like I've learned what it takes to be successful in every rep. You know what I mean? So
right.
I kind of feel like it's just there. It's not something I'm thinking about necessarily on the field or during the play. It's just
just natural.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Well, I'm curious, what do you think that other players aren't doing to correct that? Like, why do you believe that a lot of these offensive tackles, even considered first rounders, they are kind of sitting way too far forward, but they're not correcting themselves? Like, what do you think is like blocking them from taking that developmental step the way you did?
Honestly, I'm not sure because I can't speak for anybody else, but I know for me, I'm always looking to improve my game in any aspect, and, whether it's anything small, so what other people are seeing, what I'm seeing. So
right.
I know that's probably it for me.
Okay. Well, I'm curious. You're someone who really appreciates improvement and you work your ass off, obviously. I mean, no disrespect to Purdue, they aren't the known as offensive tackle U. So that means that you've put a lot of work in yourself. Your coaches have put a lot of work into you as well, to where you've been able to become now one of the rising stars of the draft cycle. So in your eyes, where do you need to continue developing the most?
For me, just keep getting stronger, keep getting, bigger, improving my knowledge of the game. I feel like my understanding is pretty well. Just, that extra step, maybe the stuff that doesn't pertain to me immediately, that could, like secondary alignment and, you know what I'm saying, things like that. So, other things like just consistency in my technique, I feel like I've done a good job over the offseason working on that and the run game and whatnot. But I feel like just my consistency with technique and physicality sometimes.
Well, you're going to be going up against a strong technician this week in RJ Oben. I don't know if he's going to be going over to your side very often, but are you excited for the opportunity? Is that this week? You guys are facing Notre Dame, right?
We got a bye week.
You got a bye week, okay. I was like 9-14 popped in my head. I'm like, that's not this week, but you're going to be facing up against RJ Open next week. Like, what do you think is going to be like your best way to be able to defeat him, but also what's the factor that he brings to the table that you might fear the most?
Probably just, playing my game and just going out there and, having the mentality of I'm about to do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's just a mentality for me. I don't really stress too much about individual matchups and whatnot. I feel like he's a big power guy, big long arm guy, so that'll be one thing to look out for. But yeah, it's an exciting matchup. I played with his younger brother, and me and him were very close. So
that's great.
Yeah.
Okay, so I am curious. So we talked about the idea of some people believing you to be a guard. I'm pretty much in the soul. Like, I thought it would be a waste to put you at guard. I'm just going to go out and say it. Like, I'm pretty straightforward. I'm a straight shooter. Like, I thought that your technique and the power you bring to the table would be a waste at guard. Do you know what your arm length is? Because if it is like 33 and above, that might maybe quell some people who don't have those stats.
It actually just measured it not long ago.
Okay.
It might have been like 33, 32 and a half.
Okay.
I don't know. It was above 30 though.
Yeah. Okay. So obviously that's super crucial to teams that have like 32 plus in that range. So I'm curious, are you looking to potentially add some extra weight? Because you're talking about becoming stronger, becoming more powerful. Do you think that like adding some size would kind of tip the scale to where people wouldn't really consider you in that range for a guard? Or do you think that there might be something else that could sway their opinion a little bit more?
Yeah, I've been looking to add just a couple pounds just to, increase my overall volume and just center of mass. I feel like
right.
I don't really think of it as relations to guard. I mean, obviously in the NFL things are bigger and stronger and better, so obviously it wouldn't hurt to have a couple more pounds and be stronger. But I feel like it's just a part of getting better for me.
100%. So I'm curious. I know that you have a good amount of mobility, you have good power, you have technique. What type of systems do you think you'd thrive the most in at the next level? Like, what offensive schemes do you most relate to?
I feel like I do well getting out in space, getting like screens and draws and whatnot. I do well in the outside zone. I feel like on the backside and front sides, and pass protection, anything. I feel like I can do it. It doesn't matter for me. I'll be able to adjust to whatever.
Great. Well, obviously, for me, you're sitting into that first round range. I just released a video today where you ended up going in the first round to, I believe, the 49ers. So, obviously, I think that right tackle spot, being able to learn from Trent Williams would be kind of a dream scenario for you, especially with that level of mentorship and, someone like you who loves power and technique combined, being out in space. Like Trent Williams is the epitome of that, I assume. Would you say that would be the style of player you're trying to build yourself to become, or are there other role models as well?
Yeah, honestly, I mean, I watched a lot of Trent Williams early on in college, and seeing like a lot of his moves, especially like as I was moving to tackle. I felt like he would be a great player to relate to in terms of athletic ability and explosiveness and whatnot.
Right.
And I feel like it's helped me a lot. And honestly, playing with him would be so crazy.
Yeah.
But, definitely still in a couple of moves.
Okay. Well, I am curious. So for me, like there's obviously a lot of positives to your game. For me, I'm a real big sucker for anchor. When you're around that 300-pound mark, obviously it's not the easiest when you have guys like Mikael Williams in the world. Like I'm just talking college world, where he's 265, but he's moving at the speed that a 230-pound edge rusher would, right? I saw that sometimes it would be like holding that perimeter boundary wasn't always the easiest thing. Do you think that that is an area where you would want to thrive a bit more in? Or do you think that based on certain systems, you're happy mitigating that by going to the best spot?
Like, just you saying like getting a better anchor.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that would. Yeah, I mean, I'd want to work on that as well. I feel like that would also help just getting stronger and
Yeah,
being
absolutely.
a little bit heavier.
Yeah.
I feel like that's really more it is, because the technique side, there's not much you can do to it. So
Right. That was going to be my follow-up because, I mean, for me, I'm still developing my understanding of how to get from point A to point B, how to improve. And for offensive tackles, it is difficult to understand how would one improve their anchor. So do you think that it is just more of a size, strength, and then maybe just a innate understanding of leverage, or is there something extra there?
I feel like probably the biggest thing would be the strength part of it, just because like if you can't hold your own, like
Yeah,
there's not much you can do to stop it. But also
right.
like on the leverage side, if you do understand, like I feel like I do a good job of getting hands off me, and I feel like if you can't, let them get to that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I feel
No,
like
I
that's
get
the
that.
biggest thing for
That's
me, is to not let them get to that power.
Yeah. So that was my favorite part of your game was the fact that you hand fought better than every other tackle in this class. Like you didn't allow defenders to be able to get a grasp and then gain the leverage on you and be able to tip the tide, so to speak.
Yeah,
So
it's awesome for me. I love hand fighting, man.
yeah,
Everything that comes with hands, I'm for it. Like even in the run game, I like to throw it in just because it's unexpected. And
yeah. Okay, so I'm curious. Like, have you ever thought about a career or like maybe training in martial arts to become even more skilled? Because like it really was to that degree where like I know people who are in mixed martial arts, that's a trait that very few people who are outside that realm have. So you have an amazing foundation. Like, do you think you could improve upon that even more? Like Aaron Donald was famous for using knives with mixed martial arts tactics to become even better.
honestly, I wouldn't see why it would not, especially like something like boxing. Why not just
Yeah.
on your hands constantly? For me, what I like, what I do that helps me outside of my game, it's not with my hands. It's more like my feet. I'm big on soccer. I play soccer a lot, and that's
Soccer.
like even coming back from injury, that helped me a lot with
Yeah.
just like ankle mobility and strength and everything.
That's great. I mean, I didn't really know that soccer was like a beneficial route for a lot of players. I mean, I know a lot of guys who like to do swimming and stuff like water polo to be able to develop their lower strength, especially post injuries. But that's great. That's great. So, if you were to kind of pitch yourself to a team, like what would you say is the best aspect of you, not just as a player on the field, but as a person?
The best aspect of me, I feel like I'm a good player to have in the locker room. I just throughout my years at Purdue, I've always been good to everybody who's good to me. I
Right.
never looked to cause any problems. I've always looked to encourage my teammates and just make sure everybody around me is doing good. You know what I mean? So I feel like outside of football, I feel like it's bigger to leave a mark outside of football than it is on the field. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I'm curious, what like football is a brutal sport. It's something that is not just rainbows, butterflies, pancakes. I mean, for you, it might be a lot of pancakes, but for most people, it's not. What is your motivation? What gives you the drive to wake up in the morning when you want to be able to hit that snooze alarm, being able to like spend those late nights studying the tape and the playbook when you just want to go to bed? Like, what is really your motivation? What makes you tick?
Like the opportunity that arises from from everything. It's like there's so much that can come out of it, and I know how great that I can be, and I don't think there's much that's stopping me from being great besides me. So I keep that in mind every day. I feel like I'm just trying to make my family proud.
Yeah,
which is always a big thing. But really, just like knowing how good I can be with football and at my position, I just feel like that also keeps me going every day.
right. No, I mean that's 100. Like, I love that. I know that for like a lot of the guys that I've talked to, it's really just to like improve their families' livelihoods, and it really is the excitement of being their best self. So I'm glad to hear that that's like your motivation as well, because the guys who have that are usually the most successful ones. Because a lot of people say it's only intrinsic motivation that's what helps you succeed, but having that extra motivation that like your family and such, like it's good to know that it's not only coming from you, because we all have our off days, right? So I am curious. Speaking of off days, we all have off plays as well. How do you mentally rebound? Like, do you get frustrated at yourself in the moment and then kind of just like kick yourself in the ass? Or are you more like, I'm going to forget about that and rebound?
I really don't. Like, it really does get me upset as much as I would like to say it doesn't. Like, losing a play, losing a rep, it does make me upset, but I don't let it throw me out of my game. You know what I mean? Like, I let it affect me, but I don't let it affect my game or my play. So I feel like if anything, it'll motivate me more to do better and to not let it happen again. But I feel like I'm hard on myself.
So I was just wondering if, like, what's your biggest takeaway? If someone watches all of this or didn't watch any of it, what do you want them to remember about you?
That I don't think anything will ever be able to take away my motivation. Just be hungry to get better and improve.
Yeah. That's great. Well, Marcus Mbow. I'm obviously really grateful for the time that you've had to come on here. I would love to be able to keep in touch, and I'm excited for the rest of the year for you, man.
Yes, sir. Appreciate you for having me on here.
Of course. Well, you have a good one. Say goodbye to the people. Have a good one, everybody.
Yes, sir.
Later.